Hey guys, welcome back. We are in my room because it is summer now. The kids are out of school. My son is in his room, which I share a wall with. He's playing games with his friends and he's very vocal. He's like yelling back and forth with his friends. So if you hear him in the background, I apologize. Also, we had some other really exciting news. Today, I took my son to go get the driver's permit. So he has his permit for the summer while we're doing road trips, and he'll be getting a lot of practice driving everywhere. So I know that's incredibly exciting for all of us. I've been really nervous about it for forever and ever. I was just like, oh my God, we're getting close to that time. But now that the time has arrived, we're all very excited. We're definitely having to take quite a few baby steps, and I'm not sure how to do that as a parent, kind of picking what activity we're going to do to get more comfortable with driving. So I have been getting help through YouTube. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the topic of today's video. We're going to check in with my reading challenge checklist. Maybe you have been following along, but if you haven't been following along, one of my biggest reading goals this year is to do the reading challenge that my local library puts on. And they have 116 prompts to read from. So I have also been doing TBR baskets. I put all the prompts in this basket, and then for every video vlog, I choose one or two books and do a reading vlog around the book I chose to read for that prompt. So far, it's been really fun. We are actually I'm working on the 5th prompt right now. However, I've read over 70 books. Actually, I think it's more like 80 books now. Where am I at? I don't even know. 70 to 80 books. And I have been filling in the prompts as I go. So I haven't actually shared all the books that I have been reading for every single prompt that I have read so far. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and check in with that challenge. I'm going to go just down the prompt list and talk about if I've read the book, what book I chose. Number 1 is to read a book with a title starting with the letter M. I have not read anything for this. 2 is a title starting with the letter C. For this, I have Crenshaw. 3 is a book with a title starting with the letter P. I've not read anything for this, but I think when this pops, I would really like to read Pachinko. 4 is to read a book with a title starting with the letter L. I have not read anything for this. 5 is a book with subtitle. I have not read anything for this. I do have one I'm very slowly reading. It's a nonfiction. 6 is to read a book with a cozy cooking element. For this, I chose Accidental Magic by Iris Beaglehole. I ended up choosing this one because our two main characters, mother-daughter, are very much like Lorelai and Rory, and they're always hungry, so they're always making their way to the cafe in town. I just think it's really, actually, they're no more hungry than a normal person. It's just a lot of books that we read, they don't regularly eat. 7 is a dystopian fiction. For this, I got Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. 8 is an award winner. I haven't read anything for this yet. Honestly, this one's going to be incredibly easy. I have so many. I didn't really realize how many books have received awards, but there are so many different literary awards to choose from. When I was brainstorming this, I have Olive Kitteridge, which I really just want to, I don't even know if it's really going to be the book for me, but it's been on my shelf for ages and ages. It's fairly short. It was also a Pulitzer winner. And then the other one I have is All the Light We Cannot See. I think that one's going to be probably more down my alley. At least has a couple of elements of things that I really like set on an island, and there's a lighthouse. I think they said it's magical realism. I don't really know, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I'm really sorry. I keep touching the stand that my computer's on and it's wobbling. Sorry. All right, we're on to number 9, a comfort read. I'm not really sure which direction I want to go with this. I don't know if I want to pick a cozy mystery, which I've recently got quite a few new cozy mysteries, which is not really a genre or subgenre that I have really read from before or much. But somehow this year I found some new YouTubers that have made some really cool coffee-themed mysteries and pizza-themed mysteries and I don't know, all these really cool cozy mysteries. So I think one of those is actually going to fit really good for this one, or I might just go back and read an old tried and true favorite, maybe Twilight, but we'll see. 10 is to read a book featuring mythology. I actually just did the vlog for this one. It's not up yet. I haven't finished editing it yet, so you will have to go watch that video to find out which book I read for this. It was supposed to, well, I'll tell you which book I ended up with, but you'll have to go watch that video to find out why. Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. 10 is to read an enemies to lovers plot. For this, I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. 12 has an element of science fiction. For this, I read Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. 13, a book written in the present tense, The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. 14, a celebrity book club pick. For this, Remarkably Bright Creatures. I'm actually incredibly happy that I read this. This was also a book club pick for my library. In addition to this prompt list, they also have a monthly book that they are reading. And I would have never read this book except for, I didn't really know what to read for this pick, the Celebrity Book Club pick. And I kept seeing this book everywhere. And then I saw it on my library app to rent the audiobook. And I was like, well, let's just give it a try. And I ended up really liking it. That was a nice surprise. 5 is to read a book that has books on the cover. I have not read anything for this yet, but I'm thinking that when I get this prompt, I'm going to read the 13th Tale. In fact, the 13th Tale could fit for a ton of different prompts on this. Like, I was doing some brainstorming, like research on different books to read for some of these prompts. And the 13th Tale kept popping up for a lot of them. And I've also had that book on my shelf for a really long time. 16 is to read a book published in 2024. For this, I've got Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. This was an ARC that I received by NetGalley. 17 is to read a book that has a dragon on the cover. For this, I had Aragon, but that book is quite large, a little bit intimidating. I did start reading the audiobook a long time ago, but I ended up reading a children's book for this one called Kenny and the Dragon by Tony D. Terlizzi. Author, illustrator, has always got the best illustrations in all of his books. Like, I don't go around regularly reading children's books, but he gets me with his illustrations. Like, I just want to read the book. I just want to flip through the pages and look at the illustrations. This was really cute. 18 is to read a debut novel. I don't have anything for this yet. 19 is to read a book by an Indigenous author. I've not read anything for this yet. I'm very excited to get to that one for the TBR basket. 20 is to read a romance. For this, I've got Belladonna. Sorry, 5:45. We're going to leave in an hour. 21 is to read a book adapted to screen. I don't have anything for this one yet. 22 is to read a Western. I don't have anything for this one yet. This is probably literally going to be the hardest prompt for me to read, but I have a couple ideas. One of them is kind of more modern style or steampunk kind of style book that I have in mind. I don't know. I have a couple like newer like fantasy style Western books that are bookmarked or something else. So do you know Vampire Academy? One of the characters in there likes to read Westerns. And I thought it would be really funny, kind of cool experiment to read like that character. As I said, this one's going to be really hard. So if you have any recommendations, please drop them below. 23 is to read a book about or containing music. For this one, I chose Plie by Jane Washington. 24 is to read a book set in fall. For this, I have Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. 25 is to read a book set in winter. I haven't read anything for this yet. I have quite a few books for this option, but one of them I think that I want to read Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater for this one, but we'll see when we get there. 26 is to read a domestic thriller. For this, I chose The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. 27, a historical fiction. I haven't read anything for this yet. 28, a book with more than 500 pages. For this, I've got Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. 29, a book by a popular author that you have never read. I attempted this quite a while ago with Colleen Hoover. I could not make it through that book. And I actually have the beginnings of the vlog clips saved, but it just wasn't working for the video project that I was working on. But they're pretty funny. So I think when we get to that, I'll have to insert my thoughts on that. I don't think I'll be able to read a Colleen Hoover book. So we're probably going to pick something else. maybe a popular author in the fantasy genre. We'll see. 30 is to read a book by a Kentucky author. This one is really weird. I don't understand why Kentucky when we live in Alabama. But whatever, it's on the prompt list. So I'm going to have to do my research when I come around to this. I kind of done some preliminary research and the options that were popping up were not very exciting. 31 is to read a book that includes an adventure. I have not picked anything for this. A lot of fantasy books include adventures, and I do think I have one of the stories from Assassin's Blade that could work for this. The assassin and the desert, I think would absolutely work for an adventure book. 32 is to read a book that has a mammal on the cover. I kept looking for books that had animals, cats, cows, horses, whatever. Like an animal. Then I read Unfiltered by Lily Collins, and I was looking up and down the list. I was like, where can this book fit? Because I already have a book written by a celebrity. I already have all these others that would work filled. And I was like, duh, a human is a mammal. So Unfiltered by Lily Collins is the pick for that one. 33 is to read a book with dual timelines. I haven't picked anything for this yet. Oh, I recently hauled a couple that would be perfect. Like that's their whole stitch is different timelines. 34 is to read a courtroom drama. I have not read anything for this yet, but I think when this one comes up, I'm going to read The Trial by Franz Kafka. 35 is to read a book that's an element of time travel. I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold. 36 is to read a creature feature. This is one of my favorites and actually incredibly easy for me because when you read fantasy, they're going to have all kinds of creatures in them. So for this one, I chose Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. 37 is to read a book with a title with more than 5 words in it. I haven't read anything for this yet. 38 is to read a book with a single word title. For this, I read Binti. 39 is to read a book set during a holiday. For this, I chose Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. 40 is to judge a book by its cover. I haven't read anything for this yet, and I don't really know what that's supposed to mean. Are you supposed to pick like a book that you think is going to be really good because of the cover? I think that's it. Maybe you're not even supposed to look at what the synopsis is. You're just supposed to pick it solely based on the cover. 41 is to read a book published in the 90s. Ooh. I am definitely going to have to do some research on this because I'm kind of out of touch when certain books were published. But 90s, I mean, that's like 10-year gap. So I'm sure we can find something. Jurassic Park would work for this, or The Golden Compass. I wasn't planning on starting that series this year, so I think we're going to find something different. 42 is to read a book that has marine life on the cover. I don't have anything for this yet. I was going to pick The Sea Witch, but I already started it and I didn't like it, so I DNF'd it. So back to the drawing board on that one. 43 is to read the final book in a series. For this one, I put The Last Legacy. I originally had The Last Legacy for the 4th prompt to pick a book with L in the title, but I went ahead and moved it down here because that one might be more difficult to complete than a title starting with L. 44 is to read a book with library in the title. For this one, I think I'm going to read Woman in the Library. However, there is another prompt to read a book with girl or woman in the title, and that would also work for that one. So we might have to flip some things around because I feel like there's a lot more books with the word library in them that I'm interested in reading than there are with like girl or woman. 45 is to read a book with a person facing away on the cover. I have not read anything for this yet. One that I have bookmarked is Silka's Journey. I don't think this one's going to be too difficult to find one for, though. 46 is to read a book with a number in the title. I have not read anything for this yet. I have 2 books selected, though, that I've bookmarked. I have one Q84, which is one of the book club picks for the Game of Tomes book club. I have not been following along with any of the books that they've been reading this year, though. This is one that has been on my TBR for so long, though, so I am wanting to get to that one. We'll see. Let's be real. It's probably not going to get read this year, but we're going to try. The other one I have for this is N0S4. And who writes that book? Why do I want to say it's Joe Abercrombie? I don't think it is Joe Abercrombie. 47 is to read a book that takes place in outer space. I have not read anything for this. I do have Obsidio kind of in the back of my mind to read for this one, but I don't know. I also have like Zenith. I have quite a few. I'm not sure if I think Zenith takes place also in outer space. I did try to listen to Obsidio much earlier this year, and it didn't quite go so well. The series as a whole, I'm kind of dreading it, but I do want to finish it. 48 is to read a book that takes place in the future. For this, I read California by Eden. 49 is to read a book written by a celebrity. For this one, I chose Brave by Rose McGowan. 50 is to read a book that focuses on mental health. For this, I chose The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. 51 is to read a book with moon or stars on the cover. I have not read anything for this, but I do have quite a few different books on my shelf that I've been wanting to read that would work great for this. 52 is to read a book that includes a map. For this, I ended up with City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab. 53 is to read a book that has a sports aspect. I have not read anything for this yet. This one was one that I was a little bit nervous for too, because this is not like a strong suit. But then I got really excited because I was like, wait a minute. Hello, martial arts. So Jade City apparently includes a lot of kung fu, which is cool. Also, From Lukov with Love is, I guess, romance that I've seen making its rounds on booktube that a lot of people really enjoy. And it includes figure skating, which I was not aware of. No one had mentioned that in all the videos, but this popped up for a figure skating book. So that's another really good option. 54 is to read a book set in the summer. I have not read anything for this yet. However, now that it is summer, maybe I should try to go ahead and pick a summer book to read for the summer. I mean, I already have a ton of books that I'm kind of drowning in, which are probably going to take me all summer long. But like, how can I get through a summer without at least attempting to read a book that's set on the beach or something? 55 is to read a book with a title that does not include the words the or and. For this, I chose Recitative by Toni Morrison. 56 is to read a book with Flora on the cover. For this, I read The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. 57 is to read a book that includes a fantastical creature. For this, I chose In Calabria. 58 is to read a book about a vacation. So I read The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. 59 is to read a book that has man or boy in the title. For this, I read The Boy with Striped Pajamas. 60 is to read a book that has woman or girl in the title. I have not read anything for this yet. 61 is to read a book with a color in the title. For this, I put All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Another book that I had bookmarked, which probably would have ended up being a much better time, was Black Chalk. 62 is to read a book that is a spooky season read. For this, I read Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. 63 is to read a classic. For this, I read Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This was a very, very shortened version of Moonstone. It was not the 500-page monstrosity of the unabridged version. I did also read a graphic retelling of The House of Usher, whatever. 64 is to read a book set in Appalachia, which I read Strange Folk by Ali Dyer. 65 is to read a book set in Ireland. I read Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. Now, technically, the current time, it was set in the United States, but the father would tell a lot of stories about his time in Ireland. So, plus they were Irish, so I feel like it's a pass. 66 is to read a book based on an Asian mythology. For this, I read Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. Sorry, I almost said Claw. My bad. 67 is to read a book with a female detective lead. 68 is to read a book with a protagonist over the age of 60. 69 is to read a survival story. 70 is to read a book set during historical significant event. I haven't read anything for that. 71 is to read a book that has a month in the title. I've not read anything for this, and this one's actually kind of more challenging than I expected. I do have one book on my shelf that's called April 3rd Incident. It's a very short book. Something about it was intriguing, I guess. And then there's a few books. There's like The September House, which is a new book. It just does not sound good to me. I just don't think that that's my kind of book. There is a graphic novel I had picked up the other day called October something, and it's about these like monster hunting family. That sounds so incredible. So I do want to read that one. 72 is to read a book that has an item of food in the title. 73, 74, and 75 are to read books by the same author. So I ended up picking Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. 76 is to read a retelling of a classic. For this, I chose The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. 77 is to read a retelling of a fairy tale. I read Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. 78 is to read a book that includes a ghost. For this, I read Doll Bones by Holly Black. 79 is to read a book with a person's name in the title. I haven't read anything for this yet. 80 is to read a romantasy. I have not read anything for this yet. My husband had got me a book for Christmas that I have yet to read. And 81 is to read a book that has been on your TBR for more than a year. I haven't come across this one yet. I have not read anything for this one yet. I'm going to have to revisit that idea, actually. But at this point in time, I don't think I've come across anything that would fit in that I haven't put somewhere else. 82 is to read a book that might make you cry. This one's going to be hard. I don't really read a lot of sad books. 83 is to read a book that involves a crime. Haven't read anything for that yet. 84 is to read a book. The author has a hyphenated last name. For this, I'm going to read something by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I have several books by her that I would like to read. I actually did already read a Sylvia book, but I ended up using that book for a different prompt just because it matched that prompt. I think I'm going to end up reading A Certain Dark Thing for this. 87 is to read a book with the author's first name are initials. For this, I read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. 86 is to read a book that has orange or black on the cover. For this, I put Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. 87 is to read a book that has green or red on the cover. The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. 88 is to read a book that deals with grief. I put I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. 89 is to read a book that everyone is talking about. In the Company of Witches. In the Company of Witches by Orly Wallace. 90 is to read a book that you know nothing about. For this, I put If You're Not Yet Like Me. 91 is to read a book with an amateur sleuth. I haven't read anything for this one, and I just realized that I have a ton of options for this, but as soon as I picked up this other book called Scarlet Undercover, who's supposed to be an amateur sleuth, I've had it in my mind that when this one pops up, I'm going to read that book, but I have a ton of options. 92 is to read a book set somewhere cold. For this, I read Crave by Tracy Wolff. 93 is to read a book with a house on the cover. I read 7 Empty Houses. 94 is to read a book on the Lucky Day shelf. The Lucky Day shelf actually asked the group what this was, and I guess at our libraries, they have a shelf that they don't put holds on, and so you're lucky if they have something there. That's the concept. And I think that they don't allow like 14-day checkouts. It's like a shorter checkout time or something. I'm not really sure, but you just kind of have to go visit and see what they have in the moment. My branch that I go to doesn't have a Lucky Day shelf. So I think I'm just going to pick something. I don't know. Or I'm going to maybe go visit one of the other branches, like the Huntsville branch. I actually went there for some event or something like that. So I might do that whenever that pops up. We'll just do a vlog around visiting a different library. 95 is to read a picture book. For this, I picked The Park by Zarate. Zarate's the last name, I'm sorry. The Park. This is just a graphic novel. So 96 is to read a book translated into English. I read The Woman in Uruguay. 97 is to read a book set in a small town. I have not read anything for this yet. I don't feel like this one's going to be very challenging. I have a lot of books that are set in a small town. It's one of my favorite kind of settings for books. 98 is to read a book about a marriage or a relationship. For this, I read Unlocking One Another. It's a nonfiction book for couples to kind of learn how to better communicate with each other. I thought it was really good. 99 is to read an alternative history. I have not read anything for this. I'm also not 100% sure what that means or how that differs from like science fiction or like a dystopian or even a utopian. Either way, you're alternating something. Oh, well, I guess dystopians and those are usually set in the future. Anyways, I'll have to do some research on this one. If you have any recommendations, again, go ahead and drop them below. 100 is to read a satire. For this one, I put Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. Now, this is not marketed or listed as a satire, but for me, I thought it was satirical, so I'm using it for this prompt. 101, read a book that is lighthearted. I haven't picked anything for this yet. 102 is to read a collection of short stories. I read Vampires Never Get Old. 103 is to read a book that spans decades. I haven't read anything for this, but also Pachinko would work for this. 104 is to read a spy novel. For this, I read Spy Family. 105 is to read a book about friendship. And for this one, I put Stone Words by Pam Conrad, where our human girl is friends with a ghost for many years. It's really cool. 106 is to read a book that is set in a tropical setting. I have not picked anything for this one yet. Oh, wait a minute. I do have one, but I haven't updated this yet. I messed something up on my Goodreads, I think. Anyways, what I'm going to end up putting for this one is called Siracusa. 107 is to read a book that has an autistic character. For this one, I read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Now, it doesn't actually say that he is afflicted with autism, but because of his mannerisms, I feel like you could put two and two enough together to surmise that he most likely is autistic. 108 is to read a book about a lost civilization. I've not read anything for this yet. 109 is to read a book with or about a horse. I have not read anything for this. I have 2 books. One of them is about Icelandic horses, which I could not get into that book. I read like 3 pages twice, and I just cannot. I can't even think of what I even read. So I think I'm going to end up reading The Red Pony by John Steinbeck for this one. I wish there were more options, but there aren't. Unless you have really good options, again, let me know. I feel like a Western would also fit. I don't know. I was just thinking that I wonder if a John Steinbeck could also count as a Western. 110 is to read a book set on an island. I haven't read anything for this yet. Again, that's one of my favorite settings of a book, and I feel like it's going to be fairly easy to find something that I'll enjoy. 111 is to read a coming-of-age story. For this, I read A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. 112 is to read a book by multiple authors. For this, I read The Ravens. 113 is to read a book that is a loved one's favorite book. I'm working on the vlog for this one right now. So it was between A Spell for Chameleon or Jurassic Park. I'm not sure yet. I feel a little overwhelmed with all the books on my TBR at this very moment in time. I do think I'm going to be reading Jurassic Park for this. And Jurassic Park would be my husband and my son's favorite book. They both really loved it. However, A Spell for Chameleon was my husband's favorite book when he was really young. 114 is to read a nonfiction. For this one, I've got Embroider Your Life. 115 is to read a dark academia. I have not read anything for this, but I have a lot of options on my shelves when I get to this, but I think I'm leaning towards reading Black Chalk or Deadly Education. Or Atlas 6. That one's going to be, we'll figure that out when we get there. 116 is to read a title that includes the words leap or year in the title. And I have a couple for this one. I have The 100-Year-Old Man. Oh God, that title is incredibly long. That book would actually fit for quite a few. That would work for a number in the title, a character over the age of 60, or leap or year in the title. So I think at some point I'm going to read that book this year, but the one I want to read for this prompt is The Year of the Hare. I've heard that it's a really good book. And that's everything. Okay. According to the calculations, because I really like how Notion does this, you can have it calculate each of the categories. I'm about 52% of the way, all the way through this challenge, which is kind of great. We're just a little bit over halfway through the year, we're under halfway through the year and a little bit over halfway through the challenge. Hey guys, you are looking into the future now. I don't know what happened to the end of the footage. It just cut out randomly. The microphone, it's not even an external microphone. It was a microphone that's in my Surface Pro. It just quit working in the middle of my video. That's getting incredibly frustrating. I've had a few instances where this has caused some problems. And I apologize. I am like such a mess right now because I really should be packing and getting ready to go on a road trip tomorrow. We are going to leave for about 4 days to go to New Orleans. I'm so incredibly excited. Over the weekend, I had a trip to take that was just completely unexpected. That put me kind of behind, and now I'm kind of like trying to get all these little things done so that when I come home, I'm not incredibly behind. And this was kind of one of those videos that has like a time frame to it. I did want to go ahead and close out this video formally because it just ended really weird. I essentially got all the information on there. So about a little over halfway through all of the prompts and a little under halfway through the entire year. That is incredibly exciting news. Of course, when I filmed this, that was, I want to say endish May, and I didn't add any of the books that I read in May. This video ended up being a lot bigger process because I wanted to add all the pictures in there, and it ended up being a lot more than I anticipated as far as editing goes. I'll just wait till I'm completely done, and then we'll do another one of these to talk about every single book that I read for every single prompt. But it was really nice to see where I stand. And then that also gives you guys some ideas of what prompts may pop up for the TBR basket videos and some things I've read this year. So if you would like to go check out some other of the videos, you can absolutely subscribe, and you can click the little bell if you want to be notified when I post new videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.